Hi everyone, welcome to CLLST. So this is the third session of legal concepts. So now we have started covering some of the important concepts. So this is the agenda for today's session where we'll be talking about important concepts. If there is any question from your side, we'll be taking up that question for sure. Now, when before I move ahead with the first topic, I hope I'm audible to everyone. Can I have a quick shout out? Yes, I'm audible, screen is visible, everything is there. So, when we talk about important concepts, so the first one is recent highlight, which I'm going to cover. So, basically, I'll be taking up one important judgment which Supreme Court has recently given. Then we'll be talking about the basic difference between civil and criminal law. And then we'll be talking about what is taught. So, first of all, when I talk about the recent highlight, so here I want to highlight a judgment where Supreme Court actually highlighted Muslim women's right of maintenance. And here there was an appeal which was filed before the Supreme Court by Abdul Samad. So the case name is Muhammad Abdul Samad versus State of Telangana. So basically, he was ordered to pay a maintenance of 20,000 to his wife by a family court in Telangana. And here he challenged this order that she is not entitled to claim the maintenance under Section 125 of CRPC. Why I'm referring Section 125 CRPC is because when this petition was filed, CRPC was in picture, and Section 125 under CRPC law talks about the maintenance. So keeping that in mind, I am referring to the same. But when you talk about the new law, so under the new law, section 144 to 147 talks about maintenance or order of maintenance for wife, children and parent, which is given under chapter 10 of the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita, which is now you can call it as a new CRPC law. So here the Supreme Court on last Wednesday ruled that all married and divorced women, including Muslim women who has been illegally given talaq under triple talaq, because we all know that triple talaq is now no more a valid mode of giving talaq, are entitled to claim maintenance from their husband under section 125 of CRPC, irrespective of what her personal law is talking about. So here basically court held that the right of Muslim women to seek recourse to section 125 will not get ruled out by the provision of Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Divorce Act of 1986. The right which is created under 1986 are in addition to and not in derogation of the right which is created under section 125 of CRPC. Section 125 of CRPC is a, you can say, a religion neutral character, and whatever happens, a person has a right to claim maintenance under section 125. And this is basically, we have seen that at multiple occasions court had stated that section 125 is a measure for social justice to protect weaker section, irrespective of what the applicable personal law is talking about. So it is something which can be invoked during the subsistence of marriages and therefore is not contingent upon divorce. So this is what has been stated. And if section court also stated that if section 125 is excluded from its application to a divorced Muslim women, it would be in violation of article 15 clause 1 of Indian constitution, which states that states shall not discriminate against any citizen only on the ground of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any one of them. So keeping that in mind, you cannot exclude Muslim women and you cannot say that you are not entitled to get maintenance under section 125, which is under the new Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita is section 144. So that is something which you need to keep in mind. So this is a recent Supreme Court judgment. Why I'm referring to this judgment again is a very simple fact that we have referred to past year papers also, and we have seen that CLAT is asking questions from family law. So this year till now, like we are sitting in the month of July, so if I cover the important judgments from family law perspective, so one is obviously where Supreme Court has highlighted the importance of traditions, customs in a marriage, and where the court also discussed about section 7 of Hindu Marriage Act, and court stated that if the section is talking about the custom tradition as is something which is the basic of marriage, then it has to be performed, and if it is not performed, then just by going ahead with the registration, it will not make your marriage a valid marriage. So that is one judgment which is important. And then the second judgment is this one, where the Supreme Court again has highlighted that Muslim women are entitled to claim maintenance under Section 125 of CRPC. And this is something which is having, you can say, historical background also, like Sahabano judgment also you can refer to. So this is the recent thing which you need to keep in mind from family law perspective. In upcoming months also, if we'll see something like this, then obviously we'll be covering the same. Now, moving ahead with civil and criminal wrong, the next concept, because we are seeing that we are having a new criminal, law in picture. So it is very important for us to understand. And also, when you look at CLAT pattern, or for that matter, ALIT pattern, or focus on these laws, they do focus on certain civil laws like tort is there, contract is there. Similarly, Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, earlier known as Indian Penal Code, is also from where they're asking questions. So keeping that in mind, it's very important for us to understand the difference between civil and criminal wrong. So when I talk about civil wrong is, less serious in nature. You can say civil wrong where two individuals are involved. For example, if there's a dispute between me and you, so you can file a suit against me, or I can file a suit against you. So here, private rights and duties of individual are getting violated or is getting hampered. Here, the suit is brought by an individual. That means, let's say I have violated your right. I have entered into your premises without your permission. So you can file a suit for of trespass against me. So, and in under civil wrong, it is also known as suit, which you file. And then in case of civil wrong, there's a concept of damages. Here, when I'm referring to the term damages, there's a difference between the term damage and damages. Damage under civil wrong is the actual harm which a person had suffered, and damages is the compensation amount which a person gets. And then there are certain examples, like in last class we discussed about vicarious liability, we have covered nuisance, we have covered negligence. So all these are example of civil wrong. Or you can say contract, this is also an example of civil wrong. When we talk about criminal wrong is kind of a more serious in nature. This is something which is an offense against society at large. For example, if a person has killed somebody, so he is not only impacting the life of person who got killed, family is also involved, society at large is also involved, because it is keeping, or you can say, leaving an impact on society. So keeping that in mind, it is being considered as an offense against society. Here, since it is the offense against society, and state is the one who is our guardian, who is our, taking care of our interest, one of the party in criminal wrong or criminal offenses is state, that is the prosecution. And it is the duty of the prosecution to prove before the court of law that a particular person has committed crime. There are certain exceptions to this also. For example, the burden of proof gets shifted to the accused. Let's say in case of dowry death, the burden of proof gets shifted to accused. Otherwise, it is always on the prosecution to prove before the court of law that this person has committed the crime. There's obviously criminal prosecution is the process involved under civil law. There's a concept of punishment under criminal law. Now, if I talk about Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, you must be knowing that it has added certain new aspect to the punishment. For example, it has also added the concept of compensation under criminal law, which was there. Compensatory jurisprudence was there under IPC, not specifically mentioned under IPC, but various Supreme Court judgment highlighted about the same. So now the criminal new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita is focusing on punishment, it is focusing on compensation, it is focusing on rehabilitation, it is also focusing on the community services. And obviously, the offenses like murder, theft, robbery, you can say treason, kidnapping, abduction, all these are part of the civil criminal wrong. So this is the basic difference which you need to keep in mind before going ahead and reading about a particular subject. So if your basic about civil wrong and criminal wrong is clear, then you can move ahead with your preparation with respect to, I mean, revision or knowing of the concept of torts, contract, criminal law, or constitutional law. So now I have decided that I'll be taking up again. I mean, in last session also I picked some of the topics from tort, like vicarious liability and voluntary non-fit injuria. But before that, I thought let's cover the basics of torts as well, so that you understand that what we are referring to, what we are talking about. So till now, I think I'm clear to everyone. Yes. So moving ahead with the first thing, what is law of tort? So, tort is derived from a Latin term tortum, which means something which is twisted, something which is not straight, something which is unlawful. So, basically, if you have got certain rights, you also owe certain duty towards the society. And law says that do not violate the legal right of other members of society. For example, if I have a right to sound sleep, and then my neighbor is also having a right to sound sleep, so I cannot start playing loudspeaker in the midnight saying ki mera I have a right to do whatever I feel like doing in property. No, if I have a right, I also owe a corresponding duties to my neighbor, so I cannot do so. Similarly, if I have a right to drive car or use the road, then that particular case I shall not be negligent while I'm doing so. I owe a duty of care towards everybody who is on road, and keeping that in mind, I have to take care of that duty. I mean, I have to perform that duty of care. And that again, when I'm referring to duty of care, it shall be a reasonable duty of care. So these are some of the things which we need to keep in mind while we are talking about law of tort. And when we talk about definitions, so one thing which you all must be knowing is that we don't have a proper legislation with respect to tort. You will not, like, you see law of a contract, Indian Contract Act, you see Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. You will never come across any law which is saying Indian tort law or tort law. Nothing like that is there because there's a there are so many ways in which a right of an individual can get violated. So it's very difficult to codify each and everything into a law. So that is one reason. Second, also, when you talk about tort law, you'll find that there is a very little legislation with respect to tort, because people are, you can say, tolerant. People are not very much aware that okay, these are something which is available to me and I can go to the court. For example, let's say if somebody has entered into your premises without your permission, how many of you are aware of this fact that you can file a suit against that person because he has violated your right? He did not take permission while entering into your premises. So I mean, people are, let's say if you are aware, I mean, some of you are obviously aware of this fact because you have studied. But in that case also, you would not want to go to the court because हमें पता है प्रोसेस बहुत लेंदी है, टाइम कंज्यूमिंग है, मनी कंज्यूमिंग है. तो वट एवर आई विल गेट एज अ कॉम्पनसेशन, उससे ज्यादा तो मेरे खर्चे हो जाएंगे. सो कीपिंग दैट इन माइंड, आई मीन, दिस इज द कॉमन पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ पीपल. दे डोंट प्रेफर गोइंग टू कोर्ट. So that is also the reason why we have a very less legislation with respect to, or you can say less litigation with respect to law of tort. We have a limitation act defines what is tort. Similarly, when we talk about, then you may ask a question that if we don't have a proper legislation with respect to tort, how are the things being governed over here? So it is based on the common law principle. To the extent common law is applicable in Indian scenario, it will be applied. Similarly, it is based on judicial pronouncement also, precedents also. For example, I think in one of the session we talked about absolute liability. So absolute liability is a concept which was given by Indian Supreme Court in the case of MC Mehta versus Union of India, which is this oleum gas leak case or Shri Ram fertilizer gas leak case, you can say. So from there, this concept has evolved. So it is based on common law principle. It is based on how judiciary have decided, or how, I mean, the landmark judgment which has been given by the court. All these forms as the precedent and the law. Now talking about the definition. So a tort is a civil wrong where you get unliquidated damages. Civil wrong, we just discussed in the last slide that what is civil wrong, that it is a less serious offense, it is against an individual where you are violating the rights of an individual. Then it is talking about unliquidated damages. Also, we discussed in the last slide that what is damage and what is damages. So damage is the actual harm which a person had suffered, and damages is the amount of compensation which a person get. So under Contract Act, there's a concept called as liquidated damages. Under tort law, it is unliquidated damages. So what is liquidated damages and what is unliquidated damages? Liquidated damages, let's say first understand this, is where party knows that what will happen in case of there's a breach of contract. For example, there's a contract between me and you where we have already decided that in case of breach of contract, let's say the amount of compensation you would be getting is 50,000, or let's say 1 lakh. So there the party have already decided that what will happen in case if there is a breach of contract. So that is why it is known as liquidated damages, compensation previously determined or agreed by the parties. When we talk about unliquidated damages, this is something which party cannot decide. For example, if I have entered into your premises without your permission, I have violated your right. What is the amount of compensation which you will be claiming from me is something which you can't decide. Maybe you even don't know that uh, or you were not aware of this fact that I'll enter into your premises without your permission. So anybody can violate your legal right. You are not aware of the parties, you are not aware about the action or the conduct of the party. So in that case you cannot predetermine the amount of compensation. This is something which will be decided by the court. Court will examine the various situations, factors, and accordingly they'll come to a conclusion that okay, this is the amount of compensation which you shall be getting. So that is why it is known as unliquidated damages. And under law of tort, we have the concept of unliquidated damages. Under contract, we have liquidated damages. Then the very next line is talking about what is an injunction. So injunction is a kind of stay order which is being used by the court. Here, basically, the idea is that suppose I have done something wrong and you have approached before the court of law saying that she has violated my legal right. Till the time court decide whether I have violated your legal right or not, court will pass an injunction order where court will put up and stay on me, where court will ask me not to violate your, rights in future, or let's say till further order. That means court is basically putting up an injunction on me that till the time I decide the matter, you shall not be violating the right of the plaintiff. So that is what is an injunction order. So defendant ordered to stop committing the tortious act. For example, your neighbor wants to build a wall blocking the road, you can go to the court seeking an order of injunction. Until the time court decides this matter, your neighbor cannot build a wall which is blocking the road. So this is the basics of law of tort. And then the very important thing is how the tort is committed. So the entire tort law is based on two principles. One is injuria sine daminum. Second one is daminum sine injuria or sine injuria, whichever way you want to pronounce it. So injuria sine daminum is where there is a violation of legal right, but actually no damage has occurred. But since you have certain right, somebody has violated that right of yours, you are entitled to damages. Very simple say example which you may have come across in past year papers also. Sometimes you may have come across the same in mocks also. For example, again I'm not referring to the case law because that is not important, so I'll be explaining it in a very layman terminology. So for example, let's go back to the election time. Suppose I wanted Mr. X to win from a particular constituency. I have a right to vote. I'm an eligible voter because I'm above 18. So I went to cast my vote. The authority denied me or did not give me the permission to cast vote, or they stopped me from casting vote. I wanted Mr. X to win the election. Once the result was out, we got to know that Mr. X has won the election. So here, there's no actual harm to me, which has happened because I wanted Mr. X to win. He actually won the election, but my legal right was violated by the authority. I have a right to cast vote, which was denied by the authority. So in that case, there is a legal right violation. There is a damage to me, which is not the actual damage, but since right has been violated, we can call it that yes, there's some sort of damage to me, and there I can claim compensation. So that is what is injuria sine daminum. Then the second one is daminum sine injuria. That means there is some actual harm to you, but no legal right has been violated. So in that particular case, you cannot claim compensation. For example, again, let's understand through a very simple example. There's an XYZ institute. XYZ institute is having monopoly in online classes. So, and I mean, nobody else is offering the same. So, student is only having the option of joining XYZ's institute. As I've stated, they are having the monopoly. So, obviously, they are the one who is earning, they are the one who is making profit and all. Tomorrow, and ABC Institute came up with the similar concept, giving providing similar education based on same examination, let's say CLAT only. So in that case, now students are having option either to join XYZ Institute or to join ABC Institute. So now let's say now there's no monopoly of XYZ, and 50% of these students shifted to ABC Institute. So in that particular case, there is some actual loss which is happening to XYZ Institute. Profit कम हो गया. पहले monopoly था, सारे पैसे XYZ के पास आ रहे थे. Now the money is also, I mean, it got divided. Now ABC is also making money. So in that case, there is some damage. There is some actual harm which has happened to the person, but since no legal right of the person has been violated, he cannot go and claim compensation. He cannot seek damages under law. So these two are the basic cardinal rule which needs to be kept in mind when we are talking about law of torts. If there is injuria sine damnum, then the person is entitled to damages. If it's the case of damnum sine injuria, then the person is not entitled to the damages. This is the one, I mean, the first basic concepts or basic idea about torts. Then there are certain specific torts which is important from examination perspective, like negligence is there, nuisance is there, vicarious liability is there, trespass is there, malicious prosecution is there, defamation is there. And I am very much sure that you have solved questions on all these terms. You can say topics in your mocks also if you go back to the past year paper. Also, before we discuss about the specific offenses, there are certain exceptions which is applicable under law of tort. And if anybody's actions falls within these, exceptions, then obviously they are not entitled to pay the damages. For example, in last class we discussed about VNFI, that is voluntary non-fit injury, which is one exception. Then second one can be the plaintiff, the wrongdoer. Then the third one can be private defense. Fourth one can be inevitable accident. Fifth one can be act of God. Sixth one can be what is this? What are the next one? Act of God is there. Then if it is something which is falling under the necessity, then if something which is done under the statutory authority. So all these are exceptions. If somebody has done something which falls within these exceptions, then in that particular case they are not entitled to pay damages. Similarly, under criminal law also we have certain exceptions. So we have certain specific offenses which we need to keep in mind while reading criminal law. For example, culpable homicide, murder, theft, robbery, kidnapping, abduction, what is mens rea, what is actus reus, what is sedition, what is treason, then what is abatement to crime, what is conspiracy. These are the some of the topics. Or for that matter, if you go back to 2020 paper or 2021 paper, they had asked questions with respect to common intention and similar intention. So when we are referring to these topics, the basics, we also need to understand that there are certain exceptions which is applicable under criminal law also. For example, private defense is an exception under both civil wrong and criminal wrong, you can say. Similarly, if something is being done under in I mean under if something is result of an accident, or if something has been done by a person under involuntary intoxication, again statutory authority is also an exception under criminal law. So these are some of the things which we will be covering for sure in future classes. So you can let me know in the comment box if you want me to continue with the law of tort explaining the exceptions in detail, or if you want me to cover some of the specific offenses, like we have done vicarious liability, we have done defamation, we have done nuisance, we have done negligence. So other than this, if you want me to cover, like I think we have also done strict liability and absolute liability. So other than this, if you want me to cover any of the topic, please do let me know. I'll be taking up those topic in the next class. Then eventually we'll move to contract. Maybe we'll also pick past year ka paper and we'll solve in the class itself. And then we'll be moving ahead with the basics of criminal law. Constitution, I think I have already covered what all are being asked. And then whatever you guys have requested, I'll be taking that into consideration. And then I think we are good to go. And obviously, in between, we will be covering current affairs topics also, which is relevant from examination perspective. So, in last month, I did the current affairs till June. So maybe in next 2-3 months again, when everything will be compiled, we'll take up those topics again, because CLAT is all about If you look at the syllabus, it is all about contemporary legal development, public policy based questions, and moral philosophical aspect. So keeping that in mind, it's very important for us to attempt that. Now in today's session, I'm not asking any questions, so I'm not giving you practice session, because I just get response from 4 or 5 of you, and those of you who have responded to the answers, I'll be posting the answer in next 2 3 days, because I'll wait for more people to answer. And then I think in 2 videos I have not posted the answer. One is the last one of ALET based one, and before that we had CLAT one, so I'll be coming up with the same. Also, don't forget to watch tomorrow's detailed mock analysis. It is based on Prime Mock 17. The session is scheduled from 8 p.m. So please do not forget to watch the session, because it gives you a fair idea about your performance in the mock, how your peers are performing. So keeping that in mind, it's very important for you guys to attend the same. So this is all about today's session, guys. I think the basics of tort, or the fundamental aspect of torts are clear to you. We'll be taking up more topics in future. So that's all for today. Thank you. See you in the next class.